Yes. So, good morning. This is Raghav from Trust Asia podcast, and today our guest is Mohar Basu, ma'am. She is the chief correspondent of Midday with over 14 years of experience in entertainment journalism. My work and her work digs deeper into the complexities of the Hindi film industry, cinema, celebrity culture, and systemic issues. She has an experience in reporting Bollywood's evolving dynamics, from the revival of cross border content to the industry's reckoning with sexual harassment. Her investigative reporting has spotlighted critical concerns, contributing to policy changes and fostering greater accountability. She has written bestseller books such as the biography of Shah Rukh Khan as well as Salman Khan actors, and she has been conducting multiple promotional events and podcasts with the people who are involved in the journalism and the books reading of books in general. So today we had a podcast with her, and we are very grateful to ma'am for coming to our podcast as a guest. And without wasting ma'am's time, I would like to begin with the questions. And the very first question, ma'am, that we wanted to tell you that because our audience is young, we wanted to keep a structure that which is relatable to the youth as well. And I would like to open this podcast by asking you the question. To begin with, could you share what drew you first towards writing and journalism as a profession?
Okay. So I was always, you know, how some kids are very inclined towards science and maths. I was always inclined towards writing. Also, it comes from the fact that I come from a Bengali family. So, you know, arts and especially books are a very big part of our growing up experience. So I was always encouraged to read more, and I always took to writing very easily. So I think it was always there in my system that I want to be a writer. Journalism came a little later. You know, very strangely, I feel that a lot of my generation grew up watching some great and some brilliant journalists, be it the people who made Tehelka or be it the first bunch at NDTV, like, you know, Rajdeep Sardesai and Barkha Dutt. It was an aspirational profession. And I think that's how I ended up in this profession, though I really wanted to get into, you know, city and crime reporting. That was something I was going to choose, but somehow life led me to the movies, and here I am.
Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, also, like I wanted to mention that you have gotten the award of Indian Achievers Club of 40 under 40. So can you just tell us how you felt like getting this big award and like how are your thoughts and feelings like a person having a dream of having a career in writing and journalism and now getting such awards in public platforms and getting covered in major news channels. How does it feel like for a dream to come true?
You know, honestly, any award or for that matter, any recognition. Like, for example, Raghav, if you read my book and you message me saying, you know, I really enjoyed this, even that matters to me as much as any award would, because it's just, as a writer, there's nothing more than you want, more that you want than someone engaging with your work. And I think that's what I've always wanted. More than the awards, I think what really matters to me, as much as I will not lie, everyone likes awards. As Shah Rukh Khan says, awards are beautiful. But more than the awards, it's basically the readers who are coming and telling me that, okay, your work is fine, we enjoy it, and it really matters to me. You know, like I remember when my last book, Shah Rukh Khan, Legend Icon Star, released. I got messages from all over the world. I remember there was a Japanese journalist who interviewed me, and that article came out in Japan, in Japanese, in a Japanese newspaper. And I was so thrilled with that interview, because I was like, something I have written in my house in Mumbai has gone and reached someone in Japan. Like, that's
Hmm.
the kind of power writing has, and I just feel very validated and very I think empowered. Like, it just makes me work harder. I feel so energetic to get up every morning and just to work harder, because I just love the engagement that this gets.
And how do you manage to keep the humility that you are able to interact with stars and celebrities as well and write books about them? At the same time, you are so concerned about, what any normal reader of who's having a normal job is thinking about your book or what feedback it gives. So how do you manage this humility that you can interact with that side of the strata as well as the lower side of it?
Because I don't look at it as strata. You know, I'm a social, I'm a student of social sciences. I don't look at society as much as I'm aware of the stratas. I don't look at things like that. I think for you, for me, someone is as important. You are just as important as someone else I'd meet. It's just people, and people are just people. It's not about humility. And I really disagree when people think in terms of social stratas. That's exactly why social sciences is studied, so that these stratas can be completely taken off, right?
Yes,
We
ma'am. Yes.
all are working towards a society where there should be no class divide and caste divide, etc. And I think after so many years of independence, also we've not quite reached there. So I think individually, if we all try, we'll get there.
Yes, ma'am. Absolutely. Ma'am, was there a defining moment when you realized that storytelling and reporting would become your life's work, and like you thought that this can be an earning source for me as well, and not just your hobby or something? Like many people do like blogs, but to make it a full time career and to become a popular writer like you have become, so the journey is often tough and arduous. So what was a defining moment that gave you the belief that yes, I can get into this full time and this can be my source, like as a primary job?
See, I always wanted to be a journalist. So when I first moved to Mumbai, I used to live in Calcutta before that, and when I moved to Mumbai, I had a job with a very famous trade website. Once I moved on from there, I went to Times of India. When you walk into a building like Times of India, it's a lot of responsibility because it's like the biggest brand in the country, and you're like, okay, I have to work hard to get to be there, to be one of them. And then of course, a couple of years later, I moved to Midday, which was actually a very defining point because this is the kind of organizational support that everyone should have. I have become the writer and the journalist I am because I've been mentored by the people who are my bosses and have been my bosses in the past. Like, my editor, my deputy editor, my immediate boss, Mayank Shekhar. I've learned a lot from these people and whoever. And, I say this for all the journalists out there. If you're doing well, of course it's 80% your credit, you are bringing the story to the table, but how it gets shaped and how you get molded is also the credit of your mentors. And the same goes for books. Like, I will say a little bit of luck does come into play. I have an editor at HarperCollins called Bushra Ahmed, and my editor has been extremely, extremely kind. Like, she's someone who has clarity of thought, and she tells me exactly what she wants. So a lot of my good work also is derived from people like her and people like my boss, because I learn so much from them every day and I put that into it. I think that has been the most defining moment. And like I said, of course, hard work is very important, but so is that. I think that little bit of luck that comes, little sprinkle of luck. I think I also had that sprinkle of luck, and I've always, made sure that the luck is warranted with some amount of hard work.
Thank you so much for the brilliant answer, ma'am. Ma'am, I would like to move to the next segment, which is talking about your career journey. I wanted to ask this particular question. Like, with over a decade in entertainment journalism, how have you seen the Hindi film industry and media ecosystem evolve?
Hmm. Okay, so I feel that when I first came to the industry, it was an easier place to be because you had a one-on-one connection with people who were making the movies, like filmmakers, actors. We had a more direct contact with them. Over the years, I personally feel, because of a lot of reasons, primarily the coming in of the publicist and the agent culture, that the direct connection with artists has changed. So a lot of what we see today is very PR generated, which has its plus and minuses, because I don't think anyone can be a PR generated star. No one can really hold up to it. Like, at the end of the day, you could be as PR generated as possible, but when your film releases and it doesn't make money, everything just gets washed out.
Hmm.
So I feel that has really changed, and not exactly for the. I don't know whether it's for the best. I don't think it's a good thing. I think this change needs to be reversed.
Hmm.
Um, Except that, I feel what has happened is there have been a lot more opportunities with the coming in of streamers. I feel streamers is giving work to anyone and everyone that's talented. So at least for the first couple of years that the streamers coming in, like 2016 till 2020 onwards, I think it was a great party for everyone. Everyone was getting like more opportunities, more work, and I think that culture has kind of become very organic in Bollywood now. Now more people are getting work. So if you're talented and if you have it in you, you will get a job. You might not become the superstar the next day, but you will get a job and you will be able to sustain yourself. So I think that's the good part of it. So yeah, things have changed, some for good, some not for good, but it's all in good stead. Let's see how this turns out.
Ma'am, do you think that mass like PR generated content like for promoting stuff like you said, Do you think it creates a disconnect with reality for, like, the people in general, like, who are viewing the news and developing their opinion based on that PR?
Yeah, of course. But honestly, you can generate as much as PR as you want, but people are not stupid. They can see through things, right? So sometimes you'll see like some very big story getting trolled a lot. You know what it means. And a lot of this trolling is also sometimes orchestrated because fan clubs are playing against fan clubs and trying to hate on each other. So there is a certain culture of that vitriol already on the internet, and that needs to be curtailed. But I don't think PR generated anything can last in the long run. It has to be backed with real work, otherwise it will not last.
Understood. Ma'am, what were some of the early challenges you faced while establishing yourself in the space?
Well, early challenges are like some 15 years old, so I don't even remember. But from what I recall, contrary to popular belief that it is hard, of course it's hard, but you also meet a lot of really kind and good people. And you meet filmmakers and actors who are really nice, and not just that, you meet a lot of people who work behind the scenes, and they're very helpful. So, contrary to popular belief, I think the film industry is actually very helpful and a good place to work in. Of course, like it takes time and all of that, but it's a nice place to work. So when it comes to challenges, I think the challenges haven't been as grave as one might imagine. But of course, I might come from a place of privilege. I also entered the industry at a time when it was probably slightly easier to do this. Right now, it's become very crowded and it's a very difficult industry to penetrate. But in terms of my own challenges, it has always been a personal challenge. Like, you know, there's an expectation of entertainment journalists to do gossip, right? Like, and that is considered to be news. To stay away from that has been my biggest challenge. I don't want to gossip. I don't want to know who is with whom and what's the affair scene looking like. I'm not interested. That's not a part of entertainment journalism according to me, and I don't want to kind of partake in it. That's it. So I think just staying away from that, which is a natural expectation of any young journalist working in this industry, um, has been a challenge.
I remember, like, when you shifted, like, from your home state to here, so did you find issues in, like, simple things like, getting a place to stay and paying a rent, which is very expensive here in Bombay. So all these kind of other issues, also miscellaneous, apart from work as well, that we face, like when you relocate from one state to another. So these are also things that add to the troubles, like in the
Yeah,
day to
they
day.
do. But when I first moved here, thankfully, my uncle was living here, so I lived with him for a month or two, and then I moved into a working women's hostel, and I lived there for a bit. And yeah, of course, like there were months where money wasn't great because we were not making enough money then. Not like we're making enough money today, also, but still. But in hindsight, everything looks very sweet. In hindsight, I look at that time as someone who's growing into their own and someone who's finding freedom in a new world. It's very of course a lot of mistakes were made and all of that, but there were months when you'd go broke, but then that teaches you financial, how to handle your finances correctly. So
Hmm.
it's all been a learning experience in that sense.
Okay, understood. Understood. Ma'am, now, like, the next segment is biography writing and responsibility. So the first question I wanted to ask in the segment was, biography writing involves documenting real lives. What ethical responsibility does a biographer carry in your view?
I think we cannot, again, taking from my earlier point, we cannot write gossip. So anything and everything that you read in both my books has been substantiated by material, which either exists on public domain or has been given to me by somebody. I will not write something that's a figment of my imagination in a book. In any case, that book will not even go through through the press if that's the case, because there are very strict rules in place in how you write a biography. So whatever one has read in both my books, it's all, if you see, there are notes at the end of the book, and it's all substantiated. So the primary job of a biographer is to, of course, there's a certain lens we put on what we are writing, because the story essentially is the same. The story of Shah Rukh Khan is the same that, say, some journalist is writing for a news magazine vis-a-vis me, someone who's writing for a book. But it has to be substantiated. And that's, I think, the primary ethical responsibility of any biography. Also, Raghav, since you bring up this subject, I must tell you that while a lot of people do think of this as a very quintessential biography, both my books are actually not biographies per se. They are a study of fans and fan cultures of these superstars. So, what it tells about the superstar, sure, but it also tells about what people are consuming and why they're consuming what they're consuming. So I think that is a very primary way in which I've written my book. So if you see, both books have a lot of fan accounts, like fans talking about why they like them and how can they like them through certain phases of their career. Like when, say, Salman was going through a low phase, how can a fan like power through that? And what did they think of Salman in those phases? Like, one of the things I wrote about was how women took to Tere Naam. Like, what did they think of Tere Naam? This was their quintessential Prem playing this character. So how did they make sense of it?
Right,
So
right.
stuff like that. So these books are, as much as they are biographies, sure, but they're primarily studies of fan cultures in India.
And so if like we have to segregate it into a particular genre that this book should actually accurately be called, so like moving forward in this podcast, what would you like me to call it, like the genre of the book? Like,
It's a biographical account, sure, but it's also a fan book. Like you have to call it a fan book as well because it is a fan book at the end.
okay, ma'am, understood. So ma'am, the next question was that how do you balance emotional sensitivity with factual accuracy while writing non-fiction?
Hmm. It requires people, Raghav. You can't do it alone because, see, at the core of this, I can tell you that you must be an empathetic and a kind person, which I would like to believe I am. I'm also very balanced with my views and my words. Like, I don't want to use harsh words on someone. It's just who I am. That doesn't mean I will not critique something. I will, but I just believe in using softer words because I think words have great power to cut through someone. And I don't appreciate hard words at all, like harsh words at all. So, but when it comes to something like this, and which was quite a challenge when it came to writing a lot of my chapters in my new book, what I do is I use my editor as my bouncing board. That while I have written this, do you feel this is reading fine, and do you feel it's not reading harsh? Like, the idea is not to hurt somebody, not hurt a fan who said something, but at the same time you got to make a point. So how do you do it in a balanced way? So when I'm able to do it, and it also comes with experience, the more you write, the more you know how to do it. And of course, the more you make mistakes, the more you'll learn how to do it. That's another thing. So one shouldn't be scared of making mistakes. So, because I've been doing this for a long time, I know what sounds sensitive, what doesn't. But of course, there were very tough chapters to write in this. And I did use my editor as a bouncing board. And there were times that I wouldn't even write. Like sometimes I would just call her and request her for a phone call saying that, listen, I have an idea and this is how I want to write it, but I want to run it past you first. So I would discuss the idea in detail for an hour, 2 hours sometimes. And she would tell me what she thinks of it. And then, if she disagrees, she would be like, I do think that this is not interesting. This will make it too dense. And this is not like, I understand why you want to say it this way, but it will make it too dense. It won't work. So that kind of support system was it was very helpful to me.
Understood, understood. Ma'am, I said the next question I had was that you ever had some experience in investigative reporting as well. How has that influenced the way you approach long-term writing and like this fan book or biographies? So, how has that experience? Did it influence your thought process while writing any book in the future as well, or because you had that experience in investigative reporting as well?
So, the kind of investigative reporting I have done, it's basically during the Me Too movement in India. And there was a massive, Bollywood has a major, at least used to have a major casting couch problem. And that is a sort of investigation I took up. How that helps me is that it showed me that if you want to find a story, you will be able to find it. You just have to look hard enough. And it also helped me reach out to people and kind of convince them to talk. So, what might be very difficult for someone else is like to find or tap into networks. I can do it far easily because I have an experience of doing it for a very long time. that has been the real learning experience. That said, that the very fact that, and that's not the only sort of investigative reporting I've done. I've done like several for the newspaper. I also write on censorship a lot. So it's just, I think what it has done to me personally is that it has given my idea of journalism a little bit of layers. I write on a vast number of subjects inside the purview of entertainment journalism, and I also look at, like, for example, in Salman's book, I've written about how Bajrangi Bhaijaan was, what happened between Bajrangi Bhaijaan and the censor board. And I think that kind of knowledge also comes from my innate interest in the, censorship in India at large. So I think that's how my investigative journalism does spill into other things. But primarily, what it has helped me do is it makes me find anyone very easy. Like, Raghav, if you tell me that I am looking for this XYZ person in, say, Cuba, okay, I can find that person in Cuba, and I'm very confident of that. And there's only a 10 or 20% chance that I will go wrong, but mostly I can find that person in Cuba. The person
Wonderful.
is wrong or not is a secondary story, but I can
Yes,
find that person in Cuba. Yes.
that's wonderful, ma'am. Ma'am, the segment of this podcast is process, discipline, and mindset. So the first question in this is, could you walk us through a writing process, like from research to structuring a narrative? Like, what are the first thoughts that come to your mind, like when you are going through this process?
So there are two drafts I write. One of them I call the vomit draft. Is when I start writing something and I just vomit on the paper. Um, the second part of it is when I start fine tuning. So first I write all my thoughts, then I edit all my thoughts, then I go into research. Like, for example, on chapters where I needed people to bring in an opinion, I brought those fans in. For that, sometimes I would interview like 10 fans and I would get only one person who's talking sense. So I will use that one copy. But it's like that's the sort of primary research that I brought in to the book. That's been my writing process. Is ideally, I always say this: if you want to write, just write. You will write a terrible first draft, but you will be able to put something on paper that can be better. So the best way to approach writing is to just write. And if you've written something bad, you can always edit it. But if you've not written anything, it's all on your mind, it's never gonna work out, right? So that's always been my discipline. And of course, I'm also, I must say this, I'm innately a rather disciplined person. Like, if you tell me, and I've always been this person, maybe I've been trained by my editors like that. If you tell me that I want something on the 10th at 10 a.m. on the 10th of February, you will have it the same morning before 10 a.m. That's the sort of discipline that I have. So discipline is a very important and integral part of writing, because writing is a very chaotic and a very nerve-wracking process. So you need to put yourself into timelines that work for you, and make sure you meet your timeline.
Ma'am, the next question I had was that what does a typical workday look like for you when you're deeply immersed in a project? Like when you're writing each of the books, say Salman Khan's book or Shah Rukh Khan's book. So like doing these projects which require a lot of work, field work, as well as spending long hours writing. So what would your daily schedule or like a day in your life look like that during that very hectic time of your life?
See, I also have a full-time job, which you missed from this. So
Yes, in addition to your full-time job.
I primarily wake up in the morning, make sure I do my full-time job.
Hmm.
Then I eat like a good lunch, and then I start writing. So most of my good writing happens post 4 p.m. when I have the brain space to write. Like, I'm not being disturbed and I'm not being spoken. Also, I live alone, so that really helps me because I can write at 2 a.m. and 4 a.m. alike. I have the luxury of not tending to family in that sense. So that really helps me. I have sometimes, like on good days, I can write from 4 p.m. in the evening to 12 a.m. at night. On bad days, I have written from 4 to 4:15 and I have been like, I'm giving up. It's not working out. So you have to listen to your instinct. You will know on a good day, you will be able to write a lot. But ideally, one should target writing 2 hours every day. It's important.
That'll be very useful to any new author who is thinking of writing a book. Ma'am, I just wanted to know that how do you handle pressure, criticism, or public scrutiny as a writer and journalist? Like all your work gets published in the public forums, and all of us read it. So how do you manage this criticism or any such negativity?
See, criticism on your work is okay. Like it's a critique of your work. I take that in the right spirit because I myself have been a film. I started off as a film critic actually. My first job was as a film critic because I was a film student.
Mhm.
But I do think that what is happening on the internet lately is that people like, for example, if I do this video, and you will notice this when it comes, the comments are gonna be about, oh, she's fat or she's ugly and stuff like that, which I think is very unnecessary. That's not criticism, and I don't care for it. But I'll be lying if I say I don't get affected. Of course, anyone would. If I tell you something about your appearance, you will be affected. But one has to look at it as, like, perils of being in the public eye. And honestly, Raghav, I chose a career in writing and in newspapers because I did not like being on camera or being in the public glare. It has so happened that the world has become video format first because of Instagram. And it's quite unfortunate because there are people who don't like the public glare of them. I
Mm.
love having conversations, but I also don't like, and I love being on stage as well. I will not like there's a film festival I am a part of where I love moderating sessions for them, and I really enjoy it. I really enjoy talking to filmmakers and writers and artists. But I don't like the sort of vitriol that comes with this. It's unnecessary hate on someone's appearance. Imagine how small a person is on the other end, that this is the first thing that they think of another person. It shows more about them than it does about me. And that's the only part of the public eye that I don't like. I don't like to be looked at as an object. And which is a very woman thing as well. I think women get sexualized and objectified so much more that it's a sort of disdain that we develop towards this, that we are like, dude, we don't like this.
Ma'am, in your early days, have you, like in your younger days, have you ever been part of Bengal's drama? There's a big lot of theaters, and there's a lot of drama culture as well in Bengal. So were you part of any of that
No,
anywhere?
never. Never. I've never been attracted to, I've always been behind the scenes. So I've always been a writer, writing or producing stuffs, or, plays for people and writing plays for people, etc. But I've never been an actor. Never.
And there's like this next segment is about guidance for young adults. So in that, the first question I would like to ask is, what is your advice to any young person who aspires to build a career in writing or journalism? And also like any advice for someone who sends their books to publishers? Like what can they keep in mind?
Okay, there are two different questions. So anyone who's into writing or a young person who aspires to be a writer, I'll tell them the first thing, that have a steady job. Make sure you get your finance from somewhere else, because writing's a very it's a very unstable slash unsure profession, because it's very subjective what gets picked up, what doesn't get picked up, right? Like, I could write something and love it, and I could
Mm.
send it to an editor and she would be like, no, this doesn't know, there's no reader for this, and I
Mm.
understand that. That brings me to my second point. You have to be extremely emotionally patient and resilient. You
Mm.
cannot, if you want to have a career in writing, expect to be disheartened, and know how to bring your heart back to a whole, because your heart will break 1,000 times before
Mm.
anything good comes out. So it's a bit of a hard profession to be in. So you have to be emotionally resilient as a person. When it comes to sending a pitch to a publisher, um, I would suggest that I always tell this to people, that please write a gist of what your book will entail. And it shouldn't be one page or two page. Send them at least 20-30 pages, so that they, like, a sample chapter and a gist of what the whole book will be about, so that they know what they're looking at. And your first pitch, or at least the pitch chapter, should be such that it hooks them in. Otherwise they will not pick. Like, it should tell them who you are as a writer, your value system as a writer, and what the book will have, and what to expect from the rest of the book. So I think that would be very important in terms of pitch. And you should have clarity of thought, because they will want to point holes in it. Like, they will have to poke holes, because they are investing money in bringing something out. So you need to be 100% sure that this is what you're looking at.
And so are like patience, perseverance, these skills essential like for any, like in the process journey of being a successful writer like you?
Yeah, and don't fall into depression. It's Please take care of your mental health.
Okay. Ma'am, you answered all of our questions so wonderfully. I would like to just take 2 minutes and show our audience this book, wonderful book, latest book that ma'am has bought. It's a fan novel, biography of Salman Khan. It's a bestseller already. You can check in all of the Bollywood bookstores, like Crossword, anything, or if you want online as well in Amazon, Flipkart. It's a wonderful book, and please do read it. I'll be putting the link in the description as well. And congratulations on two back-to-back
Thank you.
bestsellers. And last year, I had a book on Shah Rukh Khan also, and that also was a bestseller, and a lot of awards and interviews followed. And ma'am, any one experience that you remember, like when you talk to somebody, like regarding when you're writing this book, any process, vivid experience or something that you would like to share, like that happened while you wrote this book?
In terms of a fan experience,
Yeah. Fan experience, anything you wish to.
or like something that I really remember.
Yeah, okay, anything. Yeah, something you remember, if that's possible.
Okay, so I remember when I first wrote the prologue of the book. It was a different chapter altogether, which is now a part of a different. It's a part of the epilogue now. And my editor was like, "No, you have to make it. It should merit Salman Khan. You know what I'm saying? Like, think a bit about Salman Khan and think a bit about Salman Khan." And I thought about him and I thought about him, and I don't know, for some reason I was feeling a little out of sorts. So I started watching Bajrangi Bhaijaan one evening. And then I wrote the prologue of the book, which is actually some of my favorite writing I've ever done. I really liked writing that prologue because, I think we live in such a busy country and it's such a crowded country, and we wonder what makes a star or a star, right? I think the I think the reason why Salman Khan is the superstar he is because he's able to bind the country into one. And this is a very diverse country, and it's a very fractured country as well. But it takes that one superstar to bring the whole country together with one movie. And I was just so touched that evening when I was watching Bajrangi Bhaijaan that I cried, and I was like, you know what, I got the beginning of my book, because I'd written the whole book and the beginning was missing. So we were like, wow, what is the beginning of this book? Because I'd started writing from his childhood and his family and blah blah blah, and then I went on and on. But I was like, what is the beginning of this book? So yeah, it took me a long time to come to the beginning, and I think that's my favorite memory of that one evening when I was watching Bajrangi Bhaijaan and the writing of this book. It just made me realize why we do what we do, why we make movies. And there be many such movies that we look at and we be like, there are movies that are about box office, and this movie is for the heart.
I mean, thank that was a wonderful story. And I would to ask you that now, like you've written so many wonderful books about other people. Would you be happy like 20-25 years later, somebody writes a biography or a fan novel on you, about you as a subject? So how would you feel about that?
I
Like some
don't
of your
think I've done
readers.
anything yet to merit a book. But when someone's writing something on my life, why would I? I will be very flattered. I'll be like, please go ahead and write. You want opinions? I'll give you. You want stories? I'll give you.
Ma'am,
But
I want
at
to
this point, I don't think I've reached anywhere close to someone wanting to write a book on me.
understood. Ma'am, I want like final question I wanted to ask you was that we I generally see that like journalists are very good at observing things, So do you think like anything in the nation that you think should be done, like is something missing currently in our country that like all of us or in general, or maybe the government or anybody in general, any industrialist or something can work on, or you think there's some gap which should in the society which should be addressed, which is not being addressed to the correct amount at the moment?
Oh, there's a lot that is
It can
not
be
working out in our
anyone, like I
society.
mean, it can be social, it can be anything issue. And you feel
I feel that we need to be kinder to each other. I think we are becoming a very unkind society who has forgotten how to respect each other, or even just to have that basic decency towards each other. I think that needs to come back. I don't know what has caused it. Maybe we are just all unhappy with our own lives, that we are just going around hurting others. But I think that needs to stop.
thank you so much for giving us some time for this wonderful session, and thank you so much,
Lovely,
ma'am.
Radha.
Thank
Thank
you
you
so
for doing
much.
it. Thank you. You take care.
Yes.
Bye.
Bye.